This week on ANN, we hear about projects from the Adventist Development and Relief Agency in Sri Lanka, Czech Republic, and more.
In El Salvador, church members fund and distribute books to prisoners.
And thousands are baptized after an online evangelism event in Tanzania.
These stories and more coming up.
Thank you so much for joining us this week.
First in the news, the pear-shaped island nation of Sri Lanka is on the verge of a health crisis, and with a population of more than 21 million, hope for the COVID-19 pandemic to recede in the country remains neutral.
The Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, is teaming up with local authorities, the Adventist Church, and interfaith partners to address the most challenging preventative issues arising on the island. ADRA developed the program titled BRAVE, an acronym for Building Resilience and Vaccine Awareness. BRAVE will collaborate with interfaith groups.
ADRA Sri Lanka Country Director Matthew Whitty says, "Our team has been organizing and providing water, sanitation, and hygiene efforts to meet the needs of people since the first wave of the pandemic. Our efforts have recently shifted toward helping the most vulnerable communities get through this health crisis. We realize that in the likely event of disasters such as this pandemic occurring in the future, forming relationships and being prepared are key to minimizing severe impacts."
It is commonly known on the island that places of worship, religious organizations, congregations, and spiritual leaders provide the best means of support for their communities. Additionally, places of faith are often seen as safe havens or shelters in times of trouble.
An interfaith pandemic relief team will work with and increase the capacity of faith leaders to head the forums, then identify families with the most vulnerable members that would be prioritized for vaccination.
Each forum will focus their efforts to address COVID-19 preventative measures, debunk vaccine myths, and provide accessible resources about vaccines. Faith leaders who lead out in forums will also undergo a psychological first aid training.
The online training will include the basic responses needed when responding to any psychological need and will only be applicable until an individual is referred to a professional for support.
Another supported group in Sri Lanka are the deaf. ADRA will be working with the country's Ministry of Health to develop video messages that use sign language interpretation to address COVID-19 prevention awareness. Whitty shared that ADRA will also be working with an Adventist youth group known as the Youth Inspire Team to offer support.
ADRA had to switch gears from its BRAVE program planning a few days ago to respond to recent flooding and landslides in the southern region.
Several districts were flooded due to heavy rains that affected more than 270,000 people, killing 20. More than 2,800 survivors are staying in safety centers, and local authorities report that there have been some structural damages.
Whitty says his team will be at the forefront, continuing to spread awareness about COVID-19 prevention and target people at risk of contracting the virus. Seventh-day Adventist Church members and pastors in eastern El Salvador distributed thousands of books in two major prisons in the region on June 9. The initiative saw more than a dozen local Adventist churches join forces to fund, collect, and distribute the books to two major correctional facilities, Ciudad Barrios in the San Miguel region and San Francisco Gotera in the Morazan region. There are a total of 5,500 inmates in both facilities. Pastor and initiative organizer Edwin Lopez shared that in early 2021, some church members who have relatives in those correctional facilities approached him asking for Christian literature. The collection of donations for the project coincided with Literature Evangelism Month, celebrated by the Adventist Church every May. Among the books distributed were several classics by Adventist Church co-founder Ellen G. White, including Spanish editions of Steps to Christ, Desire of Ages, and The Great Controversy. Churches also distributed other books by Adventist authors on topics such as prophecy, end-time events, and the seventh-day Sabbath. Leaders shared that after obtaining funds and purchasing the materials, every participating church dedicated the books to God on June 5. Members asked for a special blessing on each book and on the person who would receive it. On June 9, a group including representatives of several church departments joined the pastor, elders, women's ministry leaders, master guides, and ADRA leaders to take the books to the correctional facilities. At the end of the initiative, church leaders and members say they thanked God for allowing them to be the hands and feet of Jesus on this earth. They also asked for the prayers of others. Lopez emphasizes that this is not the end, but just the beginning. With God's help, it is our goal to carry the hope in Jesus to other correctional facilities.
On June 24, a sudden tornado with winds estimated at 136 miles per hour struck several villages in the Czech Republic. Local authorities in South Moravia reported that so far 6 people have died. More than 250 people are injured and hundreds more are without homes. Eyewitnesses say the tornado tipped over cars and buses, uprooted trees, and showered hailstones the size of tennis balls. The forceful wind and hailstones knocked down power lines and destroyed a retirement home and local zoo. The Adventist Development and Relief Agency, which has been serving in the Czech Republic since 1992, has already met with local authorities and has set up fundraising efforts to help affected residents. According to ADRA Czech Republic Country Director Radomir Spinka, ADRA has a hub at Břeclav Adventist Church, located near Moravská Nová Ves, one of the villages impacted by the tornado. To organize emergency aid, ADRA in Slovakia has also loaned its help bus for the team to use in relief efforts. ADRA recently met with residents of Moravská Nová Ves village to assess damages and needs. They plan to serve hundreds of survivors in need of immediate assistance. According to local reports, tornadoes in Europe are not uncommon, but often go unreported because they touch down in sparsely populated rural areas.
A young professional and Growing Together project officer for Western Australia, Lucy Dessington, was the keynote speaker for the weekend. She shared about the significance of acknowledging our longings and losses and finding our song within our brokenness, what it means to abide with Jesus, and how we can make space for purpose, worship, interruptions, and sacrifice as we make space for his kingdom. On Sunday, 85 leaders gathered for the annual Young Adult Leaders Breakfast, including pastors, elders, and young adults from local churches around South Queensland. Stephen Argue, co-author of Growing with and a specialist in emerging adulthood and spirituality, provided the keynote presentation via Zoom from the United States for a live webinar. In addition, the conference featured live interviews, panel discussions, and male-female breakout sessions, giving attendees ample opportunity to gain practical insights into their lives and purpose. Young adult specialist for South Queensland's church support and development team, Alina Van Rensburg, said, "Throughout the weekend, made possible by over 70 volunteers, we were challenged and empowered to step into a new season of spiritual growth and renewal."
More than 28,000 people sealed their acceptance of the Adventist message with a spectacular baptism ceremony in the country of Tanzania following a 3-week evangelistic campaign.
The message was broadcast live from the city of Dodoma at Ciudad Adventist Church and relayed to more than 3,000 sites across the country. The program was the result of a partnership between Hope Channel Tanzania and Morning Star Radio and a purposeful use of evangelism through social media. The theme of the campaign was Shangwe katika njia yake, a Kiswahili phrase that means joy in his way.
In his comments, President of the Adventist Church in South Tanzania and main speaker of the event, Mark Walwa Malenkana, asserted that biblical joy is a fruit of the Spirit that does not change with circumstances. He added that the newly baptized understood clearly that only Jesus can protect them against the hardships of the world, and commended lay people and church leaders for their involvement in the campaign.
Each sermon was preceded by compelling health and family life presentations with practical solutions for social issues. The programs not only gave information and tips for physical and mental fitness, they also provided tips for maintaining family bonds.
Besides church health workers, the government of Tanzania sent equipped nurses who tested attendees for some non-communicable diseases. Additionally, church members were involved in compassionate ministries during the campaign. They visited the poor in the slums of Dodoma, listening to them and providing financial aid.
Since 2016, the media in Tanzania has been instrumental in bringing thousands of new members every year to the church. Most of the meetings are organized under the umbrella of Hope Channel Net events.
Coming up, ADRA Madagascar says a study reveals ancient cereal grain may be helpful in drought-affected countries.
But up next, the country of Bosnia and Herzegovina is invaded with love.
Hi, VL. How are you? Are you okay? Dear VL, I can't even remember how long we've been staying at home now because of this virus. For now, it's just nice to hear your voice and see your face. Nothing beats playing outside in the dirt though. Which reminds me, are your hands clean? Yes! Mommy and Daddy says not a lot of kids get COVID-19, but it's always nice to be extra safe. We should wash our hands before picking our nose. Washing our hands protects us, but it also keeps us from spreading the virus in case we touch something dirty. Let's always be clean and safe, okay? Love, Joey.
Welcome back.
From June 20 through 27, 20 young people from around Bosnia and Herzegovina joined together to spend a week in Tuzla as part of the project Invasion of Love. The purpose of the event was to share messages of love and perform different acts of kindness.
In the past, this part of the Balkan Peninsula has experienced many types of invasions that divided people and communities. ADRA volunteers decided on a different kind of invasion, demonstrating how showing love and doing random acts of kindness can bring people together.
The group of 20 youth arrived in Tuzla on Sunday, June 20, to tour the city and make preparations for the following 5 days of activities. They started by visiting the Accident and Emergency Unit, Fire Department, Communal Services, and the local police station, bringing along boxes filled with different types of goodies to express their gratitude for the dedicated service they give for citizens every day.
The volunteers also delivered 6 packages of humanitarian aid to socially endangered families. They also cleared windshields at parking lots, leaving the following message on the cars. We saw that your windshield was a bit dirty, so we decided to wash it and expand your view.
Among other things, the young people offered cold drinks to passersby in different locations and gave away flowers. The group collected more than 50 bags of trash in the town's picnic area and brought surprise smiles to the passersby.
As part of a health initiative, a health bazaar was set up in the area's largest shopping center, offering free massages, blood pressure checks, oxygen level checks, blood sugar level checks, and weight testing, as well as 2 survey tests to find out people's biological age and evaluated their lifestyle.
One morning was solely dedicated to motivating Tuzla citizens to give up smoking by giving them an apple in exchange for a cigarette. In the afternoon, they invited people to bring their cars for a free car wash at the Seventh-day Adventist Church parking lot.
Invasions of Love are annual camps that aim to tear down walls among people and communities and help establish not only tolerance but true unity among people in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Since 2015, the Adventist Development and Relief Agency, or ADRA, in partnership with USAID, has implemented a food project in South Madagascar, which has been heavily affected by severe drought and widespread crop failure. Sorghum is an ancient cereal grain that grows as tall as corn and is drought resistant. It doesn't require much water to grow and can be ground into flour or used as livestock feed. It is gluten-free and can be substituted for wheat flour and is reportedly packed with nutritional benefits. In southern Madagascar, successive drought cycles have led to widespread crop failure. Such failure disproportionately affects chronically undeserved communities whose primary source of food and income is farming. ADRA's program manager, Emmanuel Da Costa, said, given the consistent recurrent nature of the drought cycle, the region cannot recover from one cycle before the onset of a new one, worsening and extending recovery from subsequent shocks. In addition, the rainy season has shifted by more than 2 months from the onset in September to onset in November, with poor distribution and lower overall rainfall. As a result, ADRA found that crop yields for maize, cassava, and rice dropped by 95% between 2015 and 2016 in the South. This reduction in crop yield left nearly 50% of the population in southern Madagascar, approximately 845,000 people, in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. ADRA began implementation of the food project in 4 stages, targeting drought-affected households for 4 years. ADRA has also implemented projects that included water, hygiene, and sanitation. During the first year of implementation, ADRA focused on promoting drought-tolerant food crops like maize, cassava, sweet potatoes, and cowpeas. However, drought led to severe crop losses, especially for maize, estimated at 70%. By the 4th year of the project's implementation, ADRA connected with nearly 30,000 households to adopt sorghum as a food crop for production. A post-survey of over 200 households was conducted to see how sorghum did compared to maize. Survey participants reported it was easier to cultivate sorghum and that the grain does not depend on quality soil for production. ADRA's implementation of sorghum in South Madagascar significantly strengthened the local community and farmers' view on a tiny grain.
Students from Escola Adventista de Anápolis in Brazil joined together to help the Little Abandoned Light of Jesus Institute, which shelters children, teenagers, and people with physical and mental needs.
According to the organizers, 72 food baskets were donated, as well as school supplies, baby bathtubs, and books with messages of hope.
The project was organized by the school's mission agency, an Adventist Education Initiative. The objective of the agency is to encourage students to participate in mission and learn to talk to others about Jesus.
Along with delivering the donated items, the students interacted with shelter residents. Students and residents enjoyed singing songs, playing games, and praying together.
According to the organizer of the event, Renan Abreu, they have a vision to help the local community. He reports that in addition to the sense of outreach that was instilled in the students learn lessons for life through the projects.
Abreu said, "I believe that the greatest learning is empathy and a sense of appreciation in small things. The needy reality of those children we cared for caused emotion in the students. They reported that they have everything, but sometimes they don't appreciate it as they should."
Coming up, David Trim is here for This Week in Adventist History.
But up next, Adventist Mission shares the story of a young man planting churches in the U.S. state of North Carolina.
We may look, pray, read, think, worship, sing, and share differently, but we all look forward to the Sabbath. And we all look forward to the future when Jesus will come again. With this message in mind, we arrived at a core component for a new identity system, the creation grid, a simple 7-column structure for layout. The grid is a reference both to the prophetic timeline as well as to the creation week that culminated in the 7th-day Sabbath. The first 6 columns of the grid belong to the designer. They can be filled with anything: text, images, illustrations, patterns, and logos. But the 7th column, the Sabbath column, does not belong to them. It is meant to be different and special. Regardless of what or where you are designing, you can always find information to help you communicate that we are all Seventh-day Adventists.
Welcome back.
As a child, Jimmy was part of a large population of Karen who escaped persecution to live in a refugee camp in Southeast Asia.
Now Jimmy is planting churches for Karen refugees in the U.S. state of North Carolina.
Adventist Mission has more.
When Jimmy was a kid, his father fled to the border of a neighboring country chased by soldiers. His people, the Karen, were being persecuted. With help, Jimmy was eventually able to travel through the dense jungle to reunite with his father. Together, they journeyed to a refugee camp in Southeast Asia. Jimmy attended an Adventist school in the camp operated by Helen Hall, a missionary from Australia. When he graduated, she asked him to teach. One day while he was teaching, a visitor from the city promised to sponsor his education. He studied theology and later coordinated the work among the Karen, planting churches and setting up feeding centers, orphanages, and schools for Karen refugee and internally displaced children. Later, when his name came up for resettlement in the United States, he was sent to North Carolina. Within 2 years, he already had 3 budding Karen church plants and was finding Adventist Karen refugee families scattered across North America. There are about 80,000 Karen refugees in the United States. Many are just trying to adapt to a new way of living in a foreign land. Some have found refuge and support in the Adventist Church, especially while being able to worship with other Karen refugees.
I have more friends in church, in Karen church, so we can speak Karen and we can understand each other. And if we go to American church and we don't know how to speak English, so we don't understand each other.
It is very important to worship in my language because we can understand our preaching or sharing gospel if we do it in our own language.
It's important because the church member and the pastor, if we can communicate straight to each other, then that would be better. Because if they feel needed help, they don't have to go to the interpreter, and then the interpreter has to translate it to the pastor again, because some of the personal problem we don't want to tell to the other person, so we can just go straight to the pastor.
Jimmy Shui pastors several Karen congregations in North Carolina and also serves as the Karen church planting consultant for the North American Division Adventist Refugee and Immigrant Ministries.
Pastor Jimmy did many things for the Karen people. Number one is he tried to organize every scattered church members who came to the United States. Every 3 years we have a family campaign for everywhere in the United States where we have a church. Every family is coming together to have a fellowship. Unless he is planning this, we don't have a fellowship, We just stay in our own states and we don't know each other. And also because of this, the young people are coming together, serving more in the church.
My favorite is to be together and worship together, sing together. We love the way Karen people do that because it sounds good. When they sing, they sound so good, and because Jesus gave them their voice.
The Karen Adventist believers across North America asked Pastor Jimmy to nurture and lead them, as many still are not yet fluent in English. Pastor Jimmy is planting churches among the Karen across this territory. This quarter, a portion of the 13th Sabbath offering will support refugee and immigrant ministry throughout the North American Division. It will give the opportunity for other groups like this to come together. It will also provide scholarships for them to get a valuable Adventist education. Please pray for groups like this. Pray that they find comfort in Jesus as they transition to life in a new land. Thank you for supporting the 13th Sabbath offering.
Watch this and other mission stories online by visiting adventistmission.org. Then click on videos at the top.
And finally, for today's episode, let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history.
This week, we hear about the life and work of Adelia von Horn and Gustav A. Lindsay.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On July 8, 1922, Adelia van Horn died in Battle Creek in the U.S. state of Michigan, aged 83. Born Adelia Patton, she was welcomed into the home of James and Ellen White in her early 20s and lived with them for 2 years, assisting Mrs. White in preparing materials for publication. You see Adelia and the White family photographed together here in a picture that dates from 1864. In 1865, Adelia married this man, Isaac van Horn, who had been ordained the previous year. For the next 3 years, Isaac was treasurer of the General Conference, while Adelia was editor of the Youth's Instructor, the church's paper for children. In February 1871, the 9th General Conference session elected Adelia Van Horn the General Conference treasurer. She was the 5th person and first woman to fill that role, and the first woman to be one of the 3 officers of the General Conference. She served in this role for 2 one-year terms. In 1873, Isaac was called to work in California, and over the next nearly 15 years, Adelia supported him in ministry up and down the Pacific coast of the United States, pioneering in what became the U.S. states of Oregon and Washington, before they returned to ministry in Michigan, subsequently serving in Canada and on the east coast of the states. Isaac died in 1910, but Adelia survived him by 12 years. She had a remarkable career of service, helping to put the embryonic Seventh-day Adventist Church on a firm footing. On July 9, 1974, Gustav A. Lindsay died in Portland, Oregon. Lindsay had been born in 1895 in Mistulus, Sweden. At age 17, he emigrated to the United States, where he became a Seventh-day Adventist. In 1921, Gustav graduated from Broadview College, the church's Swedish language seminary, and the following year married Hildur Mari Karlsson. After a year of ministry in the United States, in 1922 the Lindsays went to Sweden. Gustav served in Scandinavia as a teacher, pastor, evangelist, and administrator for the next 24 years, except for 3 years as a departmental director for the Northern European Division, headquartered in Britain. At the 1946 General Conference session, Gustav was elected president of the Northern European Division. At the 1950 session, when there was another strong candidate, he gracefully accepted election as treasurer of the division, a position he held for 8 years. From 1958 to 60, he served as manager of the General Conference Transportation Bureau, responsible for sending missionaries overseas, until he retired in 1960. That was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Did you know the Adventist Church has a YouTube channel where you can watch ANN Video, ANN In-Depth, and plenty other amazing videos on prophecy, health, and Bible study?
Just go to YouTube and search for the Adventist Church. Click the subscribe button to make sure you're caught up each week.
And remember, leave a comment or a prayer request. We have people who are praying for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Before we say goodbye, here's some good news from the book of Ezra, chapter 3, verse 11.
The passage says, "With praise and thanksgiving they sang to the Lord. He is good. His love toward Israel endures forever. And all the people gave a great shout of praise to the Lord, because the foundation of the house of the Lord was laid."
That's our program for this week. And remember, you can always visit Adventist.news for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.